District 6460, welcome to your district training assembly for 2021. I am your district governor-elect Ryan Byers, and as a result of our bylaws and traditions, I have the extreme honor and privilege of convening this district training assembly. So far, we've got 71 Rotarians from throughout West Central Illinois convened in this room, and more are going to continue to pop on. Last I checked, we had 147 different individuals from throughout our district registered for different portions of this event. And I have to say, that might be a record. I think that's more than 50% over our prior record for district assembly registrations. And we love to see everybody committed and learning more to Rotary. Thank you for giving up a portion of your Saturday. At least if the view out your window looks like the view out my window, it's a day where probably you don't want to be outside right now, and being on Zoom on and off is probably going to be for the best. So I really do appreciate it. We're going to put up my screen share, and I'm going to go over just some general housekeeping notes before we get into the substance of the day. Can everybody see my beautiful PowerPoint slide, which indicates that, yes, in fact, we are at our district training assembly. We had some big plans for this event this year. I had a beautiful resort booked in Key West, Florida. We were all going to go down there on the district's dime. It was going to be a blast. But then a couple of different things happened. Number one, there was a pandemic. And number two, our district treasurer, Neil Miller, said to me, Ryan, we can't afford that without a significant raise in dues. So Key West is off, but we're still here. We're still live. We're still on Zoom. And I love seeing each and every one of you. Now, as far as Zoom is concerned, I did just, again, housekeeping notes. Any conference, you've got housekeeping notes. A lot of people have spent a lot of time on Zoom over the course of the past year. But I got a text message from Matt Mahala up in Peoria, and he said to me, Ryan, I've never been on this Zoom thing before. It's really freaking me out. Could you maybe let me know how it works? So just some ground rules, a little bit of etiquette. Number one, I, as the host right now, have muted everybody. Please remain on mute unless and until you have something to contribute to the conversation. If you don't know how, you can unmute yourself by going to the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom screen and clicking on the little microphone icon. The other thing is, if you want to pipe up, it is helpful to raise your hand. And when I say raise your hand, yeah, I guess you could do that. But the host isn't always going to see you if you're just flailing around like you're drowning. So the better thing to do is to raise your hand virtually. And in order to raise your hand virtually, you're going to go down to the bottom of your screen, and you're going to click the reaction button that should be in the lower right. And when you click that reaction button, you're going to have a variety of options, including the option to virtually raise your hand. The host will see that. The host will then, hopefully, if they're doing their job and paying attention, call on you to participate in the discussion. Also, I note, as probably you heard me and Bill discussing before we officially began, all sessions today throughout the day are being recorded, and by participating with your video on, you are consenting to be recorded and to have your recording utilized in the future by Rotary District 6460. If you'd still like to hear the content, but you don't want to be part of that recording, you can simply turn your video off right next to your audio button. And yes, I did give a disclaimer and tried to use some general release language because that's what I do for a living, folks. And then this is very rare, but it does occasionally happen. There are some Zoom rooms that get Zoom bombed, and they get infiltrated by folks with ill intentions who might put offensive or disruptive content up on our screens. If that happens, if one of those ne'er-do-wells does infiltrate our room, we would ask that you all simply log off of the meeting for about 5 minutes. And then at that point, the brute squad of myself and Alan Stair will find that wrongdoer, will sufficiently pummel them in that 5-minute window of time, get them out of everybody's hair, and then we will resume the meeting. So those are our ground rules for Zoom generally. I did also want to say a little bit about the format of the day, because I got a couple of emails overnight asking questions about this. We're doing things a little bit differently. Now, if we were doing our district assembly live and in person, and in that beautiful resort in Key West that I was going to book before Neil Miller rained on my parade, probably what you would see happening is we would have sessions ongoing at the same time in different physical rooms, maybe 3 or 4 different sessions. Well, we're doing that today as well. It's just we're doing it on Zoom. So when you registered, you should have gotten a confirmation email with 2 different Zoom links, and you should have gotten a reminder email with that same information just yesterday. There's a room A, room B. Everybody is currently in room A. And your agenda will tell you which sessions are happening in room A and which sessions are happening in room B. And if you have a session later in the day you want to attend in room B, then first what you need to do is you need to leave the room you're currently in, room A. And you do that by hitting the, in my case, it's an in button because I'm the host, but in your case, it'll be a leave button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Hit that to leave room A, and then pull up the second Zoom link for room B, click that link, and you'll be taken through to that session. And if you've got difficulties with that throughout the day, feel free to let me know. So I think that covers everything from a technical standpoint. Does anybody have any questions before we launch into the real meat of this opening session? I'm not seeing anybody in the chat. I'm not seeing anybody utilize that raise hand feature I tried to educate you on here in the last 30 seconds. So we are going to move right along, and I am going to introduce our first speaker for the day. And this is an individual who, frankly, I have a lot of respect for. I have more respect for this individual than perhaps anybody else in the world. And he is going to give you a preview of some of the things that you can expect to see in the Rotary year that is going to begin July 1st of 2021. So to give you that preview, welcome him to the stage, the one, the only, District Governor Elect Ryan Byers. Woohoo! Yeah, that's me still. Okay. Self-introducing District Governor Elect. So the new year's a coming. What are we going to do in 2021 to 2022? You know, it used to be at an event like this, you know, every year Rotary International has a new theme. And to go along with that new theme, they have a new logo and they have a new slogan. And it used to be that at an event like this, I would have a banner covered up maybe with one of my bed sheets, and I'd pull my bed sheet off of there and everybody would see the new theme for the first time and they'd be so impressed and they'd clap and they'd hoot and they'd holler. But things are a little bit different in 2021 because we have a little thing called the internet. We have a little thing called Facebook, which means that everybody has seen this theme already and everybody knows what it is. In fact, it's right behind me. It's right behind Kathy Jo. It's right behind, or at least it was before she changed her background. It was right behind Emily Roberts up in Quincy. And that theme is Serve to Change Lives. And you've probably seen this theme before. You've probably seen this logo before. But what I wanted to do this morning as we get ready and we get all of our leaders trained up for the Rotary year to begin is I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this theme, what I have been told it means to the folks who came up with it, and frankly, what it means to me. And granted, I'm a little bit biased because this is going to be the theme for my year as district governor, but I really do think this is one of the better Rotary International themes that I've seen. For a few different reasons. First off, for anybody who doesn't know, our incoming Rotary International president is a gentleman by the name of Shekhar Mehta. And Shekhar is from Calcutta, India. He is only the 4th individual from the Indian subcontinent in Rotary's history to hold the position of Rotary International president. And he came up with this Serve to Change Lives theme and logo, which really is what Rotary is all about. You know, we are all about service above self. We've had that pumped into our heads since day one, since we all joined this fine organization. But what do we serve to do? Well, We serve to change the lives of the individuals who benefit from our service. When we're talking about that child that receives 2 drops of liquid polio vaccine, that is a child that has been saved from potential illness, from potential paralysis, potential death. That is Rotary serving to change lives. When I go on Facebook and I read about my friends at the Rotary Club of Pike County having a day when they're building bunk beds to give to children who are not of good means and are sleeping on their floors, that is serving to change lives. But it's not just about changing the lives of the individuals to whom we are providing service. It's also about changing the lives of the servant. It's also about changing the lives of every Rotarian who's on this call. Think about where you were and who you were before you joined Rotary, if you've been in for a period of time, if you've been in 5, 10 years. Are your friends now the same people as they were when you joined Rotary? Probably you've got some of the same friends as when you've started, but probably also you've made quite a few more, and you've strengthened that network, both socially, professionally, personally. Let's talk about how you view the world. I can't speak for everybody, but certainly being part of Rotary has given me a much more global view. You know, I'm somebody who grew up in a town of 2,300 people, Tolono, Illinois, just south of Champaign. Never left the United States of America before I joined Rotary. Yes, I was kind of aware of what's going on in the world, but it was Rotary that got me on a plane, got me to leave this country, got me to see the sights. So when you think about this coming theme, you think about serving to change lives, think about the positive changes, not just for the people you're serving, think about the positive changes for yourself as well, because one of our big topics always in Rotary is membership. And we need to think about how we sell Rotary. Think about how the organization has personally enriched you and how you can convey that message to that prospective member. So we talked about the theme from the standpoint of the Serve to Change Lives slogan, but it's more than just the slogan. We've also got this beautiful logo that's hanging out above it. And this logo really speaks to me. I hope it speaks to you as well. Obviously, it's a hand, it's holding a stylized globe. And I learned something about this logo recently. I've probably heard Shaker Mehta, our incoming president, speak half a dozen times, 8 times, maybe even 10 times now. But in the most recent presentation I heard from him, I learned something that he'd not mentioned in any of those prior speeches, and it has to do with this logo. If you look at it, you'll see that the hand that is holding the globe, I mean, that hand is not flat. You know, that hand is not up and waving. That hand is forward and it's sort of cupped. And that's not just because that's what you need to do to hold a ball. It's because in Shaker's culture, in his home area of Calcutta, if you come to an individual and you hold your hands out in that manner, it means that you are there to serve them. So the visual ties in with the verbal. And so you have that hand gesture of service in this logo, but it's not the hand gesture alone. It's the hand gesture being directed to that stylized globe. It's that hand gesture being directed to the entire world. And in my mind, this is not an interpretation I've heard from anybody else. This is my personal interpretation. What do you see when you see that stylized globe? You see a lot of different colors. You see blue, you see purple, you see red, you see orange. And in my mind, that's a reminder that when we say we're here to serve to change lives, we're here to serve to change lives, everybody's lives. And that speaks to Rotary's principles of diversity, of equity, and of inclusion. We are here to serve everybody, regardless of race, regardless of color, creed, national origin, sexual preference, gender identity, disability, whatever category you want to put out there, we are here to serve these people because we are one human race and we have one common cause. So I'll hope you think about that theme throughout the year, and I hope that you'll try to imbue a little bit of it as everything that you do as Rotarians. Some of you, however, might be a little bit more practical, or a little bit more left-brained, we'll say. And you might be thinking to yourself, Ryan, hey, it's great for you to talk in these sort of broad platitudes about how we'll serve and how we'll embrace everybody. But what's the real nitty-gritty? What do you actually want us to do? What does Rotary actually want us to go out and do? I'm glad that you asked that question, hypothetical person who lives inside my head, because I've got answers to that question. And in order to answer that question, I'm going to run you through a series of priorities. There are 3 of what I call the Shaker Meta priorities, and then there are the 3 Ryan Byers priorities. The 3 Shaker Meta priorities are the 3 things that I have heard our incoming president say in these multiple different speeches on multiple different occasions that he wants Rotary to accomplish. And then the 3 Ryan Byers priorities are, how does Ryan Byers see this shaking out in West Central Illinois? How does Ryan Byers see this applying to Rotary District 6460? So the first thing that our incoming president has really emphasized is an initiative that he refers to as Each One Bring One. Rotary has 1.2 million members. That's a statistic that if you've been around for a decade, you've heard for a decade. However, with all due respect to anybody on this call who might, have some ties to the Rotary International as an organization, that 1.2 million number these days we're arriving at it through a little bit of fudging. Because it's really more like 1.14578, and we're rounding up to get to 1.2 at this point. So we've got a little bit of a membership issue in that we're now reaching a point where more people are going out the back door than coming in the front door. President Shaker wants to combat this with Each One Bring One. And Each One Bring One is a simple concept. During the 21-22 year, every single Rotary member tries their level best to think of one person in their life who would make an exemplary Rotarian and tries to bring them into the organization. It's an initiative that takes Rotary membership and moves it away from being the obligation of a chair in your club or in your district, or a committee in your club or in your district, and reminds us that this membership is the responsibility of each and every single one of us as Rotarians. So that's Each One Bring One. Obviously, if that's a huge success, we'll double the size of our membership worldwide. Now, realistically speaking, I think we probably know that's not going to happen, but the membership goal that Shaker has associated with this is he would really like to see 1.3 million Rotarians by the end of the 21-22 year. And if every single person on this call does their level best to bring in one member and encourages every other club member to do the same, then that 1.3 million as a global effort should not be that difficult. The second initiative that RIPE Shaker's out there talking about quite a bit is the Rotary Day of Service. And if you go to the Rotary International website and you do a search for a Rotary Day of Service, you will be able to find a page that is dedicated specifically to this initiative. And you will be able to find a pamphlet that goes into the concept of a Rotary Day of Service in quite a bit more detail than what I'm going to have the time to do this morning. But the very short version is Rotary Day of Service involves multiple Rotary clubs in the same geographic area, or if you're a little bit more isolated and you don't have another Rotary club around you, some other community organization. It involves those organizations partnering to do a larger scale service project than what they would normally be able to do on their own as a single organization. And perhaps just as importantly, it involves not only that service project, but it also involves putting in the time and putting in the effort to make sure that you have a dedicated public image push around that service project. So you're not just doing the good work of the service, you're also making sure that it's an initiative that'll capture some eyeballs and get people talking about Rotary in your community. Then the third initiative that I have heard Shaker talk about quite a bit is during the 21-22 year, there is going to be a global Rotary initiative on empowering girls, girls under the age of 18. And there is a presidential task force at the Rotary International level that has been established to work on this Empowering Girls initiative. And at this point in the game, everybody in my position, District Governor Elect, has been told that we're going to have an emphasis on empowering girls in the coming Rotary year. And they have been told that we need to think about what that might look like in our respective districts. And beyond that, we have been told to stand by. We have been told that the task force is still doing their work and they're going to give us some additional resources regarding what the Empowering Girls initiative will look like. But I mention it, even though there's not quite a bit of detail yet, so that everybody can start thinking about what that might look like in their individual communities. I will say that this is all very preliminary, but after I announced this initiative at our district team training seminar last month, I was immediately contacted by Beth Allen in Springfield. For those of you who don't know Beth, she is an executive with the Girl Scouts of Central Illinois, and she was really taken by this. And we are hoping that it might lead to some partnerships between our Rotary district and between our local Girl Scout councils. I know that Beth is very interested in leading that initiative. And if there's anybody who might want to assist Beth in developing that, working on a committee, feel free to let me know. I'll get you guys connected. Also, not a lot of details yet, but I have had some communication with the district to our east, District 6490, East Central Illinois, about whether that could be an initiative that our two districts participate in together, because most of our districts are covered by the same Girl Scout Council. So those are the three big initiatives I've heard of from Shaker Mehta. What does that look like in Central Illinois? What does that look like here between Peoria and the Mississippi River down to the Metro East area and up to Aledo and Abingdon? Here are my thoughts, and here's what I'm really focusing on as far as my internal list is concerned. We talked about each one bring one. We talked about the fact that, that 1.2 is starting to look more like 1.1 million and change. In our Rotary district, things are a little bit more, I don't want to say dire, but things are a little bit more urgent in terms of our membership numbers. For the first time this Rotary year, through no fault of the people who are doing hard work to make it otherwise, we've dipped below 2,000 members for the first time in the history of our district. And if you look at the trend over the course of the past 5 or 6 years, that's not because of any aberration that has occurred this year. That is because of a general downward trend that has been ongoing for at least 5 or 6 years. It may have been ongoing further, but I don't have data back any further. And to a certain extent, it's not surprising. And I say it's not surprising because if you look at the general population numbers for our district, our general population is down in this area as well. So we as Rotarians have a particular challenge in that we're hoping to grow our membership numbers despite the fact that we have a lesser population to work with. So that means that we need to double down our efforts and be all that more adamant about telling the story of the good works that we do, talking about how Rotary has changed our lives in order to bring those individuals in. My personal goal this year, because I really don't know that it's realistic to go from, membership losses for half a decade, to an immediate membership gain of, 500 people. I will be perfectly content and I will consider it a success if we do what my good friend, past District Governor Brian Barstead refers to as bending the trend. If we can stop the downward slide and we can maintain or maybe come out a little bit ahead, I'm going to consider that a success. And again, each one bring one. Every Rotarian's got a hand at doing that. The other thing, and this ties into the Rotary Days of Service, even before I heard about a Rotary Day of Service, I really wanted to increase collaboration across our district. And though the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously been a terrible thing, the one silver lining that it's had is it's made many people a lot more comfortable with using formats like the ones we're using right now. And I want to, even though we're in a world where things are starting to open back up and hopefully that trend continues, once we've reopened, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we've all become comfortable using this technology. Because guess what? As I talk to different Rotary clubs throughout our district, we've got a lot of the same problems and we've all got resources that we could share. So, the club up in Kewanee, if they've got a lot in common, they determine through a meeting like this with the club down in Collinsville, they're 3 hours plus away from each other, but there's nothing saying they can't hop on the phone, hop on a Zoom, and try to work some things out together to share resources to say, hey, this fundraiser really worked for us. Maybe it could work for you. So please, as you go throughout the day, as you hear different people talking, and I swear throughout this event, there will be people talking other than me. We will get to that eventually. But when you hear those people talking, if you hear a great idea, jot down a name. We've got a district directory. Find that. Don't let those connections, don't let those comments be the last time that you hear from those people. And then number 3, I really, and this ties into the Empowering Girls, I'm going to put a strong emphasis on re-engaging our youth programs. Because if you think that, the last year has been difficult for your Rotary Club, and I'm sure it has been, think about our Rotaract clubs in the district. Think about our Interact clubs in the district. For as hard as it's been on your Rotary clubs, this past year has been 10 times as hard on them because every Rotaract club and every Interact club in our district is tied to a school campus of some sort. And they have obviously had massive disruption. So we're really going to have to put efforts into rebuilding our Rotaract and Interact programs. And the other thing is, we had no youth exchange during the current Rotary year, and we are not going to have any youth exchange during the 21 to 22 Rotary year. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the 22-23 Rotary year, as Tiffany Wormowski is going to talk to you about in a session a little bit later. And that doesn't mean that when we do it in 22-23, our numbers of inbound students and our number of outbound students aren't going to be bigger than they've been at any point in the past 10 years. Because we're going to do that. We're going to make that proportional effort, and we're going to look to every one of your clubs to re-engage and do as much with youth exchange, Rotaract, and Interact as you possibly can. So those are Shaker's 3 priorities. Those are my 3 priorities. I'll also throw out just a few dates to remember. If you like district events and you want to bump up to the next level, we do have an institute coming up that's being hosted by our Rotary zones. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but suffice it to say our Rotary zone covers the area. We're actually in the northern part of the zones, goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico in the south, Oklahoma in the west, goes over to Ohio in the east. So a pretty big area. And if you want to meet and network with Rotarians from all throughout that area, save the dates of September 28th through October 3rd, because that will be our Zone Institute in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And they are currently planning for an in-person event. You will be able to register come May 15th, and the web address for that is rizones30-31.org. Also, don't forget, we do have an international convention coming up. That will be virtual, was going to be in Taipei, Taiwan. We decided that wasn't a good idea. So we're going to do it virtually. The Rotary International Convention will be June 12th through June 16th. And you can find more details on that through riconvention.org. There is a small fee to participate in that this year, but it is certainly less than your plane ticket to Taipei would have been. And then closest and nearest and dearest to my cold black heart is our district conference. Our district conference is coming up on November 12th to November 13th, and that is going to be at the Gateway Center in Collinsville, Illinois, assuming that public health considerations allow us to have an in-person event at that time, and I'm optimistic that they will. But November 12th to November 13th, Collinsville. I know that there are some Collinsville Rotarians, including my new friend Scott Rehu, who are registered for this event. I'm sure Scott's on the call, and I'm sure they're all very excited about the district conference. And that is really going to be our time to celebrate our accomplishments of the past year, and I hope celebrate the fact that by that time, we'll have been able to fully reopen our organization. And Scott has confirmed that he is here in the chat. Good to see you, Scott. So those are some upcoming dates to remember. And that will conclude my yammering. But hopefully, again, I appreciate you all coming out. I appreciate you connecting. I hope you learned something today. I hope you make a connection to a Rotarian that you maybe wouldn't have met before. And I hope that you all dedicate yourselves to serving to change lives.